It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the movies of November 20th, 1992. Three movies to look at, three pretty good movies for the most part. We'll delve into all three of them right now. Let's jump on into it. Let's start off with the first movie that we have here, and that's, of course, the sequel to one of the biggest comedies of all time. In fact, the biggest comedy of all time. The long-awaited sequel, Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. One thing we should get off the bat right away with this movie is that, yeah, it's pretty much the same movie as the first film. In fact, the people who made the movie even admit that this is a rehash of the first movie. If you ever see the DVD commentary for this, they literally say in the commentary that Home Alone 2 is basically just the first movie all over again, this time, except that instead of in their home, it's in New York City, which usually these sequels don't usually turn out very well, and granted, this movie is not very good compared to the first movie, but at the same time, it still is very enjoyable. It's still much more enjoyable than a lot of the Home Alone sequels that came after this. I really don't like Home Alone 3. It's one of the worst movies I've ever seen. Home Alone's 4 and 5 are just not very good. The only one I did kind of like, and I know everybody hated it, but Home Sweet Home Alone really was not. It's not that good of a movie, but it certainly beats the crap out of everything that came after Home Alone 2. I mean, the basic problem with Home Alone 2 really is the fact that it is very similar to the first movie. There are a lot of things that are very similar. The story structure, the characters they put in here, the fact that these characters have basically regressed from where they were at the end of the first movie back to it's back to where they were in the beginning of the first movie. Here in the second movie, it's literally a regression of these characters. Like, everybody in here has basically regressed back to where they were at the start of the first film, except for Buzz, of all people. Like, yeah, he's still the bully character, but at the same time, he's found a way to actually be smart when it comes to up with these bullying things. Like the big scene in the beginning of the movie where he goes into where they're doing the Christmas play, and he pushes and he's like making fun of Kevin while he's doing a solo, and Kevin pushes him, and everybody's mad at Kevin, and clearly Buzz is in the wrong, but the way he defends himself and after that, like, he's very smart at what he's doing, even though he knows good and well that he's in the wrong here. But he's found a way to actually. It's like he's the one character in this movie that has improved from the first movie, and that's something I think is actually really interesting and very funny, because it's like that throughout the entire movie. Like, every time you see him, he's like thinking like a philosopher at times, and like he's trying to be more of an adult. It's funny to watch, honestly, and it really is one of the strongest aspects of this movie. And there are a lot of strong aspects of this movie, honestly. The visuals are still very nice to look at. The Christmas colors are very nice to look at. New York City at Christmas time in '92 looks amazing. Those shots of the World Trade Center where Kevin goes up there and takes the and it's up at the top there. I mean, that still holds up even after all these years, even after the events of September 11th. Which, I mean, sadly, unfortunately, you can't watch that scene anymore if you watch it on TV during the holiday season. Like, right after 9/11, they took that scene out. Like, they would still show Kevin in front of the World Trade Center, but they never showed him going up at the top of the Trade Center, which it kind of makes sense, but at the same time, though, it's still I don't know. I feel like after a while, you could have put that back in. Granted, yeah, we were still going through a time where we were still dealing with the effects of 9/11, and I mean, The Simpsons had the Simpsons New York City episode, for example, is one that they didn't show in syndication for the longest time after 9/11, but they eventually put it back in the rotation. I mean that's something that really I think could have been that's really something that could have been put back in later cuts of the movie. But and the movie is still very fun overall. Like, I do like that there is a little bit more of a darker tone to it. Like, the traps in here are a lot more intense and actually pretty funny. Like, even something as silly and stupid as Kevin just throwing bricks at Marv. Like, it happens so many times in the climax where all the traps are set up. Like, it's so stupid, but you can't help but laugh about it. It's so hilariously done. And most of the characters overall are still pretty fun. The new characters they add, specifically Tim Curry as the hotel manager. I mean, just he completely fits that character so well, and he brings another level to the movie that really would have puts this a little bit more above a decently made film. Granted, there are characters that don't work. Specifically, Brendan Fricker as the Pigeon Lady. Of course, Brendan Fricker was in My Fair Lady, not My Fair Lady, My Left Foot. Completely different movie, My Fair Lady to My Left Foot, but she was the mother in My Left Foot, and she plays the Pigeon Lady here, which is not a bad character, but at the same time, it's pretty much the old man from the first movie. I mean, again, a lot of things are taken from the first movie here. You've got the scene where Kevin's watching the old movie and he has to use it to trick the bad guys, and again, the Pigeon Lady's like the old man, except the Pigeon Lady's story is not really all that good compared to the old man in the first movie. And again, like everybody, the main characters really have regressed from the previous movie, and it's just, I mean, there really could have been something special here if they actually took the time to do it. I mean, get the family more involved in the traps. Like, Home Alone 5, I guess, tried to do something like that, and that didn't really work out too well. Like, they didn't really take the whole idea through all the way through, but I mean, yeah, it's not a very good movie on it. It's not a very good movie, but at the same time, though, there are still a lot of elements to it that I would still gladly take over the other movies in the Home Alone series. And I mean, yeah, if you like the first movie and you go into this with the idea that, okay, this is going to be the same movie, but it still could be pretty fun, you'll definitely really appreciate what they do with Home Alone 2. Like I said, it's still the best sequel they've done. I mean, anything after 2 is not really very good, except for Home Sweet Home Alone, and even that one was just made it barely over a watchable film. But yeah, I'll still gladly take Home Alone 2 any day if I want to see another movie in this series, and I'm definitely going to be watching again this holiday season, as you should too. If you love the original Home Alone, you should really watch Home Alone 2, and yeah, that's pretty much all I got to say about that one. So, that's Home Alone 2. And with that said, let's go ahead and move on to the next movie that we have here. Another great, now we get to the great stuff. Denzel Washington starring in Spike Lee's Malcolm X. So this is Spike Lee's sixth movie. After Do the Right Thing, which is still one of my favorite movies of all time, this probably comes as a close second of my favorite movie from Spike Lee. I mean, this is a really fantastic film, mostly because of Denzel Washington really showing everybody what his true capabilities were as an actor. I mean, we've already seen it before in mostly little films like Mississippi Masala, and then The Mighty Quinn. I almost forgot about it. And then bigger stuff like Mo Better Blues, which was the first of the 4 collaborations Washington and Lee did together. And then, of course, Glory, which won him the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. We've seen how great of an actor he can really be. This was the first movie that I think a lot of people looked at and said, this guy is one of the greatest actors we've ever have working right now. And I still consider Denzel Washington to be the greatest actor working right now. I mean, the guy has never made a really bad movie. Even something that's not as good as the movie itself is not good, he will usually put his all into it. And this is one of his best performances easily. This is a fantastic film where he really gets to show everybody his abilities as a leading actor. Just a fantastic film. The visual look of the movie is impressive all around. It's very topical. It's very much a movie that still holds the test of time. Has a great cast overall. You not only have Washington and Lee, but you also have people like Angela Bassett, Al Freeman Jr., Albert Hall, Delroy Lindo, and it's just a well-made film overall. This is such a well-made film. It's a great epic movie too. This is reminded me a lot of other epic movies like Gandhi or even something like JFK. Honestly, it feels like if you blended Gandhi and JFK together, you got kind of an idea of what Spike Lee was going for with this movie. And it's, like I said, it's a very well-made film. It's a movie that's over 3 hours long, and it's a movie that you never feel like you're really in there for a long time. It moves along so smoothly, and you're so invested in what's going on with this story and all the stuff that this guy had to go through in his life. You just can't help yourself and just get invested in the story. It's such a well-made film all around. It's one of Spike Lee's greatest achievements as a filmmaker. It's a fantastic film all around. I'm really looking forward to checking it out again when it gets the Criterion release coming out a month from now, as of the day I'm recording this. But Yeah, I'm really looking forward to rewatching this one again and to seeing it in the way that I think the movie was. Yeah, toy belt. I'm really looking forward to watching it again and just going back and seeing how much I really enjoyed this movie a lot, because I remember seeing this movie the first time about 10 years ago, and I was just blown away by what I saw from it. It's one of the reasons why I think I said Denzel Washington is probably the greatest actor we have working right now, and this is Spike Lee's one of his greatest achievements as a filmmaker. So yeah, Malcolm X, fantastic film. If you haven't seen it, do yourself a favor and do it. You are doing yourself a huge disservice by not doing so. With that said, let's go ahead and move on to the last movie that we have here, and that is Harvey Keitel in Bad Lieutenant. What's unfortunate about Bad Lieutenant is that whenever anybody talks about it nowadays, they talk about the Nicolas Cage movie that came out about 20 years after this, Bad Lieutenant Port of Call New Orleans, which is a good movie, but I still prefer this movie over that movie. I mean, Port of Call New Orleans is a fine movie. Nicolas Cage is good in it. So is Eva Mendes. I think it was trying a little bit too hard on the comedic aspects to it, and for a lot of people it worked. For me personally, it just didn't work as well. Like, this movie, I think, works really well. This is a brilliantly made neo-noir crime erotic thriller with Harvey Keitel really giving it his all. This is one of the few leading performances he had at the time, and he really takes full advantage of it. He's fantastic in this movie. It's not afraid to go extreme with what they have to do to get the point through. It gets gritty. It gets really uncomfortable, but at the same time, it feels warranted. It doesn't feel like it's coming out of nowhere, and it's trying to tell a story. It's trying to tell some major points, and it's really well done. It's a dark, grisly crime thriller, and it works really well on so many levels. This is directed by Abel Ferrara, who's this was one of it, who also did The King of New York, and then would later do such films as Body Snatchers, Dangerous Game, some other movies of note. I think that's about it. I'm looking at the Wikipedia page for his film works, and I don't really see anything after Dangerous Game that was completely notable. But this is really the best movie he ever made as a director, honestly. It's the one I go back to every once in a while. It's just such a wonderful film. It's a great, dark, grisly thriller that gives you everything you can ask for and then some. It's more than well worth a watch. If you can handle the pressure of it, definitely give Bad Lieutenant a shot. You will not be disappointed by this movie. So with that said, that wraps up another edition of Time About the Movies. Next time we meet, we look at Thanksgiving weekend 1992, with two movies in particular, including The Bodyguard, starring Kevin Costner and Whitney Houston in her feature film debut, and also the very controversial The Crying Game. So, two more notable movies that we'll look at next time around. Until then, thank you very much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode, and I'll see you guys tomorrow for another episode. So thank you for watching, I'll see you next time, and until then, take care.